Hello, Bizarre Story Junkies. If you're listening right now, you are tuned in to the Bizarre AF, where we talk about the strange, the absurd, the unknown, and all things bizarre as fuck. I am Alesha, your host for today's episode, and like always, we ask that you keep an open mind, a skeptical ear, but keep on listening to the facts as we take you on our newest journey. Bad karma, death by academic institution. Ahoy, ahoy. How are you, my little co-host with the most, Kevin?
I'm Gerd.
Gerd. Okay.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's getting a little chillier here.
I love fall clothes so much.
I do too.
They're my faves.
I know. I love that sweater that you're wearing. The cable knit moment. We love
the
it.
Little asymmetrical offness.
Oh, love asymmetrical. Yes. So you're doing good? Ready for today?
I'm ready. I'm excited. Yeah, I don't know what we're talking about, and I want to dive into some nutsness.
Okay, cool. It's pretty nuts.
Okay.
So I think I'm actually going to start out maybe with a little quote.
Okay.
And it's by the person that we are covering today, who's Aaron Swartz. The quote is, "Information is power, but like all power, there are those who want to keep it for themselves."
Mm-hmm. This is true.
It's very true.
Okay.
So, we often hear about those like tech geniuses who, change how we kind of interact with technology.
Mm-hmm.
Who are a few that come to your mind, Kevin?
Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Agreed. Yep.
My Tesla boo.
Your Tesla boo, Elon Musk.
Yeah. He's crazy as fuck.
He is crazy as fuck. He has like a different way of thinking of things, right?
Yeah. I know there are others. I don't know if Albert Einstein was crazy. I feel like he was crazy. He was super smart.
Very, very intelligent. Kind of changes the way that we see things.
So smart, just like super smart, correlate to wacky, personal, like you don't know how to behave around people kind of person?
That's a great question. I'd say that a lot of the folks that we knew in the past, like for instance, Nikola Tesla, which we'll have to do an episode in the future on him.
Yeah.
You could say that he was potentially on the spectrum of autism.
Yes. So is that, maybe that's what it is.
That could be part of it. Your brain just kind of fires off
differently.
in a different way.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about like some of the tech geniuses and stuff, I think of like Steve Wozniak, who was one of the co-founders.
He's another one.
Bill Gates.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Dudes who are like ultimately really smart and are able to like kind of organize intelligent people, which I would say maybe Steve Jobs was really good at organizing intelligent people.
Yeah.
And they have like companies that they start in their parents' basements.
Yes,
right?
our garages, yes.
And in general don't really get laid until they're billionaires, right? And sell their
right.
The
now you're suddenly cute.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait, how much money do you have? Yes, we're down. Yeah. So, we're talking about Aaron Swartz, and honestly, Aaron Swartz was no different in intelligence. He was born north of Chicago, and from a young age, he really enjoyed, learning and seeking knowledge. I think a great way to kind of explain him or to talk about him is he was very principled. He and his family, they were incredibly principled people. They had really strong beliefs, and ultimately, this principled nature came up a lot in Aaron Swartz's life. So, he's around my age. 1986 was when he was born. And, I'm talking about how much he loved learning. And one of the topics that he really threw himself into was computers. He loved studying the culture around it because when I was younger, you could learn coding, and it was very, very simple. You could learn the internet, everything. I'll be honest, I kind of feel like I'm a little out of depth in talking about computers with you. So there's going to be a lot of language I'm going to say.
I love it.
So I'm going to ask you some questions. So
Okay, I will do my best. Yes.
do your best. Kevin, you are a tech person. You speak
Love
computers.
technology.
Yeah.
Love
you speak
it.
different computer languages. You know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not. I do not. I'm like,
Well, it's like speaking a foreign language.
it so is.
Same thing. Like I speak French. I don't speak any languages. I can write
Code.
programming languages.
Yes. I can.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Like Dave can write like programming languages. I cannot. No fucking no way. But I feel like when you're passionate about it, you really kind of go deep into the deep end with these languages.
Well, that's just
and
it. If
stuff.
you're passionate about anything, you'll dive into it because you love it.
Because you love it, and maybe you're a little obsessive. And I think that Aaron Swartz was very obsessive about these things. Like he was one of those people who maybe potentially, I don't know. I don't think he was diagnosed as being on the spectrum, but could have been, because he was all about it, like coding and like getting into the nitty gritty. So much so to the, he was. We're going to flash forward to Aaron in 1999. He was 12 years old. And while the rest of us are freaking out in 1999 thinking, oh my God, the world's going to end. Millennium's happening.
I was doing, not to digress.
No, please do.
They, so when I was working with at the time, this whole 1999 thing was a thing.
It was a
like
huge
you said.
thing.
And so
moving over to 2000 because
of the time clocks.
None of the clocks were generated, so it would switch over to 2000. It was only in the 1900s.
That's right.
So people are like, is the world going to end?
They weren't sure if computers were going to flip over. So like when it turns 2000, like our computer's going to break. Like, did we account for that? And so the company that I was working with actually I was at a New Year's Eve party.
Okay.
We had prepared for this for like years in advance, right?
It was a huge deal.
They had me going into work. I had to get to work by 11 that night so that when it switched over, like we were all there, like
just to make sure nothing
ready
crashed.
to like do something. I don't know what we were supposed to do, like in case like shit failed, like we had to fix it. So it was an event. It was
an actual event. Like from my perspective, I was 12 years old when I did it, or when I experienced it. So we went to just get water because I lived in Arizona, and the tap water in Arizona is awful. So you have to go to like water stores to buy like actual water that's okay to drink. So I was there and we didn't realize, it's December 31st. There was a huge line because people thought that the end times were coming, and they were lined out the water. They were trying to bring as much water into their house because, as humans, we need water. So that was my interaction with 1999 to 2000. So
amazing.
Aaron's also, he's a year older than me. So just about my age at that time. So while the rest of the world's like freaking out thinking the world's going to end, stockpiling water and food as the millennium approached, this dude creates a website called the Info Network. And ultimately it was a user generated encyclopedia. It's kind of like Wikipedia.
Okay.
And the guy ends up actually winning awards. This 12-year-old wins awards.
Wow.
Which puts him on the map for coding. And about 2 years later, he actually becomes a part of this group, the RSS group. Not to put you on the spot, but do you know what RSS is?
Is that like the data feeds, like an RSS feed?
Yes. Yeah. So an RSS feed it's a web feed that actually allows users and applications to access updates and to websites in a standardized like computer readable format, right?
We use RSS for our podcasts, so that's how we get distributed to all of the suppliers. It's through an RSS feed.
Okay, so very relevant.
Very relevant. We use it today.
Dude, I had no idea. When I'm like looking all this, I'm like, what the fuck is RSS group? So I was like looking it up, and yeah, he's a 12-year-old. It's kind of like a genius as far as these groups. So he's like on these huge panels with men in their 50s who are who are in these RSS groups, like really cutting edge at the time, and talking about the potential that RSS could really do in the internet. Like when we're talking about 1999, we're talking about like those really shitty websites.
Stupid.
Like really stupid. You still had Ask Jeeves. Like Google really wasn't even a thing.
They look so dumb. Like,
MapQuest, Google Maps was not a thing.
God.
It was MapQuest.
Yeah.
Like these things it wasn't nearly as verbose as it is today. So
sure.
This RSS group, they really actually, this group creates the first iteration of an RSS web application.
Amazing.
Which is what we use.
We use it.
Yeah. And that's really a huge deal that, you kind of have a better idea of than I do. And maybe if you're listening.
It's exciting. I mean, that's like crazy. That is like frontier forefront
with
stuff.
It really is
seeing
like the wild
future.
It's seeing the future, seeing what options are available and saying, hey, look, we can do this. We're going to create this, and maybe it's not going to be able to be used in the way that we intend it to be used, but like years later, we'll have somebody listening to or like creating a podcast and
distributing it
through RSS feeds.
Yes.
So, this dude, he's super, super smart, believes, like really has a principled thought process behind not seeking knowledge and not hiding knowledge from other people, like despite economic background. Like if you want to learn, you should be able to learn. And it's very very apparent as far as his his going through RSS, like this RSS group, and like being he was really ahead of that. So he goes to an Ivy League college. It's actually Stanford. And he really actually isn't a fan of it. He goes into it. He's like, he's
probably bored because he's so smart.
That's the bottom line is he's incredibly bored, and he really actually seen more of a loner. Like he thinks that he's going to go into this experience where everyone's going to be seeking knowledge and like trying to like figure shit out, and like the stuff that you're going to study is stuff that you're really genuinely interested in. Oh, guess what? That's not actually the case. It's really about networking. And so he was kind of turned off by that idea. He didn't really like going to school to kind of like rub elbows with other, intelligent people or well-bred people, which is really those Ivy League folks. So, he's seen more of a loner, just like a lot of programming guys at that time were. And of course, this really is the case, because how the fuck do you get good at programming? Not by having an active social life.
Totally.
You do it by like being totally cool with sitting in front of a computer and literally typing in letters and shit and code. Like
sitting in a corner and coding and being all isolated and
super isolated. Yeah, that's I think that is a definite part of it. So we're gonna fast forward to ultimately what becomes Reddit. So essentially Aaron's well known in many tech circles for being a gifted coder, and through a founders group actually called the Y Combinator firm, he actually connects with a startup called Infogami. Now, Infogami is an information management system that allows for visually interesting websites. So instead of having all of your information like on a black background and it's only text, like you can insert pictures. It makes it's clickable, like things that you actually want to interact with. So he's like, hey, look, this is really what I want to do. I'm going to work and do this and drop out of college. So he drops out of Stanford and he works full time for this startup in 2005. So that's what he's doing in 2005. 2005 for me, I was graduating high school and trying to figure out who the fuck I was.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, let me like figure out like ways for people to gain more knowledge. Like, I wasn't doing any of that. I was like, do I like which boys do I like? And like let me drink some Mad Dog 4040. I was definitely not coding shit. So he's working full time at the startup, and ultimately he didn't like the Python code that was being used in Infogami.
So I
yes, Python.
I do not know it, but I have so I went. Oh God, this is so nerdy.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I went to a computer game.
Shut up. You were at computer camp? Oh my God, Kevin.
And we had to program different languages. And so like some of them were like these, the little 5x1/4 discs. And then we had the 12-inch discs and there were all the floppies. And we had to do all COBOL and Python and program. I mean, it's so geeky.
It's so geeky.
So geeky.
When was this? When was this computer camp? Honestly, you have to tell us. Was it around 2005? Was it before 2005?
Oh, way before 2005.
Way before 2005. Okay.
I was in high school.
You were in high school.
So this
when you were
was
doing
like
that.
late 80s.
Oh my God. So you're really cutting edge. You know everything.
I was so
Geeky?
into computers when I was because computers were just starting to become like a mainstream thing. Like they
Yes.
were starting to introduce them into homes and personal computers. And so late 80s, I was trying to be ahead of the game. And I begged my father for a computer and he actually ended up buying one. I know he couldn't afford it. I know he couldn't fucking afford it. He bought me one anyway.
Aww.
And I know.
He's like, hey, I know that you're interested in this.
Yes,
I want you to do
support me.
Oh, that's
isn't
so
that
sweet. Yes.
Yeah, so I've been into computers since I could think computers. Yeah.
You're like an Aaron Swartz.
Love it.
Yeah, you
No,
love it.
well, I don't know if I'm on the spectrum, but
No, but like you enjoy it. He was maybe obsessive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those guys I bow down to those kind of guys because they get it.
They're geniuses.
Geniuses.
Yeah.
And they can think way ahead beyond what anybody thinks of at this very moment.
Yes.
And they can they're not necessarily predicting the future, but they know what people are going to need or want, or they can think way ahead of all of that.
Yes. It's insane. I don't know what any of these fucking acronyms or anything means ultimately. Kevin, you probably should have been doing this episode.
That's
not me.
hilarious. This is fun. Thank you.
So ultimately, he I said he dropped out of Stanford. He goes to Infogami. He didn't like the Python code that they were actually using. He's like, yeah, this is bullshit. There's a better way to do this.
Oh my God, so he could write his own code.
So he created
Shut
WebPy,
up.
WebPy was the web application framework for Infogami at that time that he actually created. He created himself. So in early fall of 2005, he actually connects with another founders group, Y Combinator startup. You might know this startup. It's Reddit. Essentially.
Oh God, my God.
Yeah. So he connects with them as he's working for Infogami because they're both part of that same founders like group that found both of them, the Infogami and Reddit. I'll be honest, like I kind of feel like I've said this already that I'm out of my depth, but this talk makes me a little thirsty, and it's not because I'm actually interested in like into these tech dudes. It's really because I need to fucking have a drink before I continue.
Oh my God.
It's all over my head and my pay grade. So ultimately, Aaron, joins with the Reddit folks to rewrite its Lisp code database, like code base. And so he used Python and WebPy. And although it's successful, Infogami's tech ultimately was abandoned. So the co-founders group or the founders group actually suggests that he and like Reddit and Infogami kind of merge.
Okay.
And when they do that, because like Reddit and Infogami are both using this WebPy application, they make Aaron a co-founder of Reddit.
Okay.
So he is technically one of the co-founders of Reddit.
Wow.
In the very beginning, I know like one of the dudes is like dating Serena Williams or married to Serena Williams.
Right now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean like how cool is that? Like that dude definitely fucking struck gold or oil.
Gerd.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Wow.
So do you actually use Reddit?
So I'm not a user, although I have as with probably 90% of the population, Google is my bitch.
Yes.
And so, many times when I'm searching for something, Reddit's probably one of the top 10 things that comes up many times.
Yes.
So I've been to Reddit. It always asks you if you want to do the app or the browser. I always stay in the browser because I just want to download the app. But I have found many useful things in Reddit.
I love Reddit. I personally use it all the time, and I'm active in a couple of subreddits. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are. But you can find anything, like even, it's actually one of the websites that I go to, like if I'm traveling or if I don't trust something. So you literally
go in,
I'll search
purposely
within,
go into Reddit.
I'll search within Reddit because if there is anything that like people will vouch for, say like this is overrated or there's a lot of trolls up, it's Reddit. Like, you know, if you go onto something like, like Open Table or what is the other, like Yelp or something like that for restaurant reviews. Never good. You can't trust a lot of those because a lot of like the Google reviews and they're bots or they've been bought, BOUGHT, like they've been paid for.
Yeah.
So you can't count on anything. So if you're looking for something like travel places in Germany, which I'm going to Germany, this
you do
winter.
Reddit.
I do Reddit. Yeah, I do Reddit. I'll look
like real people kind of stuff.
It's real people. Like, and I'm active. The one that I will talk about is I'm active on the Denver subreddit. So if people have questions about like things to do while they're in Denver, I've commented and it's been like, hey, if you're in this place, you're seeing an Avalanche game, like here are some spots that you should go check out. Like, because people will ask questions and then real people will actually respond to them. So I'm active. I love Reddit.
Okay.
But I understand how people would like it or not like it. It's kind of like a message board system. I love it.
Yeah, no, I've never seeked it out, but I know that I found
Lots
useful information in there.
It's great information. So ultimately at that time, like in 2006, it's incredibly successful. Reddit really takes off and is purchased by Condé Nast. Do you know Condé Nast?
No.
Well, they own Wired, the magazine.
Oh.
And Vogue.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my God.
So and they do Condé Nast Traveler. Like they own a ton of stuff, but those are some things that you might hear about. So what do you think happens when a company like Condé Nast purchases Reddit?
I muted you.
Yeah, that's okay.
What happens when I think a company like
Condé Nast purchases Reddit, which Aaron is now co-founder of?
Oh,
and a person like Aaron, what does he do?
Oh, it's probably like the man,
right? Like the man. He's like, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know what I was kind of thinking about? He's like, well, he's like, I'm not into like the Devil Wears Prada, and and he kind of scrams that office kind of office life. But while I was like reading about, the purchase of Condé Nast purchasing Reddit, I kept on thinking of like Miranda Priestley. Yeah, did you see The Devil Wears Prada?
Oh my God, 100 times. I love it.
So good. So I kept on imagining them like being in the same elevator and like Aaron like Swartz being like, who the fuck is this? And like Miranda Priestley like, in the elevator waiting for her fucking latte or her Americano or whatever, like, you're not wearing the right shoes, and he's like, I don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
He's like, what does your brain look like? She's like, does it look good? I don't care what anything else. I just think of like those two coming into each other, like, and it just wouldn't work.
Polar opposites.
Super polar opposites.
Yeah.
So ultimately, Aaron finds a passion that he can fund because with the acquisition, Condé Nast purchases it, he gets a buyout, right? He's out.
So he's part of Reddit.
He's part of Reddit. He's one of the co-founders at this point.
And then this other company buys.
Yes, Condé Nast purchases Reddit.
So now he's out?
He's like, well, do you think he's never gonna?
He doesn't want to be part of that.
No way. He's
shenanigans.
He kind of wants to be free and learn and shit. So like,
because he's like this genius programmer. He's like, you're not going to be controlled by the man.
Exactly. I want freedom. I want to be able to do what I want to do. I want to do some cool shit, and you're never going to do that under a corporation. So he pieces out, and ultimately, what we find is that he begins to actually go into politics and activism because that's really where his passion is, right? Like allowing like shit to be free. Like why? And his family, like I said before, are very principled. So his family, they're all passionate. They're principled people. And remember that quote at the beginning? Information is power, but like all power, there are those who want to keep it for themselves. That's how he really lived life. And he wanted transparency with officials in power. So whether that was government, politicians, etc., he thought transparency was really the way that we could move forward. He's kind of like a Star Trek, like positive thought. Like if we all are working together and trying to seek out knowledge, then the world's going to work. And I love that thought process. That's more so like I'm very like positive, the glass is half full kind of optimistic person. But he actually believed in this so strongly. He created this website, and you may have heard of it. It's no longer working today in that same iteration, but it's called watchdog.net.
I think I have heard of Watchdog.
Yes. Yeah, you probably have. All of us have heard of it. And it really just aggregates data about politicians, and it does it it does it visually. So it's not like, oh, this is,
Wasn't there there was some celebrities that oh my God. I think there was a celebrity that kind of backed
Watchdog?
Yes.
I'm sure that there was. Because he was all about like providing transparency and allowing the American people to make a informed decision about who we're electing into office. So he actually
who's Captain America?
Oh shoot, Chris Evans.
Yes, I think that I feel you guys can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yes, please.
I feel like he was somehow involved in that.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Chris Evans.
Yeah, plus he's hot.
Oh my God, yes. You can talk to us all day long about watchdog.net.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Okay.
So he actually wrote the Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto, which he said, quote, the world's entire scientific heritage is increasingly being digitalized and locked up by a handful of private corporations. The open access movement has fought to valiantly ensure that scientists do not sign their copyrights away, but instead ensure that their work is published on the internet under terms that allow anyone to access it. Which, as you can see, like the dude really believed that books and scholarly journals and other sources of information should be readily available to anyone who wants to learn. It doesn't matter who you are, whether or not you can afford it. Like anyone should be able to seek out this knowledge. We're in a place, with our culture in general where we can seek out knowledge. Very Star Trek, very optimistic. I dig it. But he thinks that like people should be able to learn without a paywall involved, right? So have you ever heard of like Pacer? It's a database.
No, Pacer database? No,
So it actually stands for the Public Access to Court Electronic Records.
Oh.
Ultimately, it stores federal court records that are handled by the United States Administration Office. And in 2008, Aaron sees that the public records are behind a paywall. So all of these public records that should be public, available to all people, are behind a paywall, and he's not a fan of it. And so he downloads 2.7 million documents and publishes these documents online.
I wonder how he got it
for free.
If it's behind some sort of locked thing, I wonder how he got it. Well, because he's fucking smart.
He's intelligent. He knows how to do it, and he knows how to kind of like fuck with systems. Like so.
And so he's like, this shit needs to be.
It needs to be public
in the world.
Taxpayers are already paying for it.
Yeah.
Right. Like we as taxpayers, this is open. This is information we should have, but the government is charging for it. Guess how much they're charging for it? For a page.
How much is the government charging for it? Is it supposed to be free though, right?
It should be
like
free.
Public information
yes,
stuff?
Yes, it should. It should be.
Oh my God, what are they charging?
8 cents a page. A page. And these are federal like court documents that we should have access to.
Binders.
Yes. Binders and binders. Binders. I have binders of women. I have binders of court documents. Yes. So it's 8 cents a page. He released about $1.7 million.
Holy
worth of pages.
Shysters.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be free.
Supposed to be, I mean, technically, yes. It should be free.
Under that whole
public.
Under the whole, what is that? Public Information Freedom Information Act or whatever that is.
Yes. Yeah, it should be free. It was not. And so he
stupid government.
I know. So he was like, fuck this, fuck the government, which I'm so down. I'm like, I love an I do love an anarchist. I love like punk rock, all that kind of stuff. I love that because there's a lot of passion and optimism.
So yeah,
there's optimism behind it.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, we as people we don't mean harm. We really want to do good, and that's what Aaron believed in. So he released $1.7 million worth of pages. It caught the attention, of course, of government officials, and you would think they would have had an issue with it, right?
Well, yeah, because they were no one paid 8 cents a page.
Right. We're losing money.
Losing money. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Also, someone like Aaron's like, hey, motherfuckers, like,
yeah,
I'm getting on my soapbox.
In your face, bitch.
Yeah, I'm getting on my soapbox to say, look, this should be free. The government shouldn't be making money off of a service that taxpayers are essentially paying for. It's public. It ought to be public knowledge. So actually, it started really gaining notoriety. So people are like, oh, he's like stealing all these government documents.
Making them public.
So there was like a grassroots campaign.
So like, do I care? Is it like I should care about this? Or was it like, hey, this is stuff that they've kind of been hiding, so like we need to figure out what it is? Or
I think that it's more like, this is stuff that should be available to the American public. It is clearly behind a paywall. There's no reason it should be. Like, we are paying taxes for it. So what the fuck? Like let's make this available for the common people.
Okay.
So other people start saying, yeah, Aaron's fucking right. He's right. And he downloads at one point like so many millions of pages, like $1.7 million worth. Right?
Worth of these pages, yes.
It's published. People are like, oh my God, he's like creating this. It's like this grassroots campaign where other people are like latching on and saying, yeah, he's right. We should have all this information public. So people
is he still part of Reddit at this time?
Well, he's still a co-founder. He's still labeled a co-founder.
Reddit. Okay.
So, and people know about him because he's a tech genius, but he's also a very principled guy. So he's very outspoken about the things that he believes in. This is one of them. So other people they're saying, hey, look, go create a free account, because you can do that for a week and you can like download.
Create a free account where?
On the Pacer website. So
on this Pacer. Oh, which is where he got it.
So he got it on, Pacer's like the database. Did
he get it from Pacer?
Yes.
But he didn't pay the 8 cents.
No.
How did he get around that?
Well, we'll get into it on the bigger one. So
okay.
I'll talk to you a little bit more about like the how exactly he did it.
Okay.
But yeah, he did some smart shit.
So now he's telling people this is the website.
Yeah, people are like, hey, download, create a free account. For a week, you have a free account. Download as many articles as you can and send them to us.
Okay.
So we're going to create this like online database that's actually
of
free.
This stuff.
Right. Which is what people should have already.
Right.
You know, because we're already we're already paying for all this.
Right.
The government's just making extra money. So fuck that.
Got it.
Right. So he actually encouraged people to go to a public library, create an account with Pacer, and then give them free access to the docs for a trial period and send the documents to a free open source site. So you know about open source.
Sure.
People did it. And the FBI looked into it and actually closed the inquiry against Aaron because there was
there was nothing illegal about it, right?
He did nothing illegal.
Right.
After 2 months, they're like, yeah, actually, he didn't break any rules. He played by the same rules as everyone else. He just did it very cleverly. So he actually used code and a public library in Sacramento, their access information. So he had the access information for the Sacramento Public Library, and he downloaded all those documents quickly. So it's essentially really not against the law. He actually starts to be seen at this point as a public hacktivist icon. Have you heard of hacktivism?
God, no, but that's a great word.
Yeah, so it's like it's hackers who essentially use their powers for good. So hacktivist
instead of
hacker,
evil,
activist. Yeah. So he actually helps co-found multiple activism organizations, the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, and Demand Progress, we've heard of these things. These are things that come up all the time. He was co-founders of all these things, or co-found these activism organizations. So the aim was really to utilize these hacker gifts that people have, the hacktivism, and you can kind of force the hand of companies or organizations for good and for the good of the people, right? Like none of this stuff should be behind a paywall. Like these documents by the government should be released because we're already paying for them. So he actually even stopped a bill from becoming law, which was the SOPA Act, and he really created a name for himself because he was grassroots campaigning, talking. He was on CNN, he was on everything, saying, "Look, SOPA would really fuck everything up," and
so he's on CNN and these shows because of this whole downloading, telling the public to download all these things. This is becoming aware.
He's becoming I would say he's more so of an expert as far as like internet accessibility and trying to police the internet. It's like, don't police the internet. Don't police, people from using it. It is the Wild West. It was the Wild West. I can still say what kind of is similarly the Wild West, where government cannot move fast enough. Yes, no censorship, essentially. Yep. So, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? He's becoming this icon of like a hacktivist, like he's trying to work for the people. He actually has a new database in his sites, and he decides, I'm going to go after JSTOR. Have you heard of JSTOR, Kev?
JSTOR? How is it spelled?
JSTOR.
I don't think I have. JSTOR. So this is a database?
It's a database. It's actually like an academic database.
Gosh, I don't think I have.
They have like it's like millions of scientific papers, academic journals. It's really like, these papers that are created by the scholarly minds of the world, really.
Okay, and so this is where they publish their papers for whatever it is?
Database, yeah. It's really essentially a database that has a paywall.
Okay.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah. So it has a paywall, but it's, if you've taken a scientific class in college recently, you'll know what JSTOR is. That's where you have to like pull like research papers or academic journals.
But then you have to pay for that shit.
You have to pay for it. You have to have a login for it.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Guess how much each article costs?
$12.
$60 to $70 each.
Ooh.
Yeah. Are the scientists who create these documents actually making any money?
They should be.
They shouldn't be. They should be, but they're not.
Who's making the money? Who owns the JSTOR?
Yeah, they're creating. So initially it's like, okay.
So I would be like, if a scientist, I'd be like, why the fuck am I putting my hard fucking work on this site?
Yes. Yeah, because I'm not seeing. Well, if you're a scientist and you believe in sharing knowledge,
your knowledge, it's not about the money.
It's not about the money. It's about the research and the data and like trying to progress.
Fucking people.
I know. So JSTOR initially it was like this database, but in order to create a database, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of coding and stuff, and there are great costs essentially to create it. But at what point do you say, okay, we're going to turn off the costs and make this free to people? Because this is all information that folks should have. It's cutting edge.
Well, so then to play devil's advocate, you say, I mean, there is cost. Someone has to pay for that. So, I mean, I get that, but. Yeah,
but for how long?
Like, don't be
$60 to $70 for every individual article.
Yeah,
or publication. That's a shitload of money. The scientists are not getting that.
That's the shitty part.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. It's not like they're like, oh, we're funding like more projects and stuff. No, that's not how it works.
Right.
So ultimately, if you're someone who had to do a research paper, you even wanted to research specific information, oh shit, you know what? I think we need a JSTOR account.
Do we?
I feel like I'm writing research
can we find
papers
in there.
like anytime I
juicy?
do something juicy. I feel like anytime we are doing a podcast, like the amount of research you and I both have to do.
We could find it in there.
Shit, dude, we probably could.
Bitch,
Let's add it to the
JSTOR account.
Yeah, we're gonna get a JSTOR account. We'll add it to the list of wants.
Okay.
Versus needs, those are two totally different things. But I'm sure it'll cost like thousands of dollars every single fucking year. But we'll file it back.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
So let's flash forward to MIT. So Aaron has the ability and access to MIT's computer network. Just an FYI. September 25th, 2010, he has the credentials through the open network that MIT and Harvard research fellow. He's also a Harvard research fellow. So like between the two, MIT really believes in kind of breaking rules in order to progress technology or science or whatever. It's like sometimes you kind of have to break the rules, right? So that's MIT's thought process. So they have open network, which Aaron took advantage of. He's also a Harvard research fellow, and he starts actually downloading hundreds of articles through JSTOR. And that pings the IP address at MIT. JSTOR actually has an employee that like contacts them saying, hey, look, there's a large amount of downloads of articles for the like scholarly journals and stuff like that are being done through this IP address. It kind of like triggers. It's like, this is like too much. So he writes code.
Like,
right?
aren't they paying? Like this account is paying their fee.
Technically, yes, they were. Yes, they were paying for their fee.
F you.
So he's downloading a mass amount onto a laptop. Ugh. And they're like, who is this? Right? He's doing it legally. Is he doing it?
Oh, but no, you're getting too much data.
Too much information that you're downloading.
Fuckers.
Yeah. So they're downloading too much. He's downloading too much information. So it triggers the system. It kind of does like a tripwire, and it shuts down any downloads from that IP address. So then what does Aaron do? Aaron's fucking smart. He uses a new IP address and continues to download like he's doing things in a very simple but like transparent way where he's downloading a lot. It's all free. Everything he's doing.
He's not being a legal creep.
No.
Yeah.
He's using open network. He also has like credentials himself or like JSTOR like credentials. His aim is to allow these documents to be free for for anyone, for worldwide. Like allow these to be in open source documents where anyone can pull from them if they are trying to seek out knowledge. And from my perspective, I'm like, fuck yeah, fuck the man. Like, yeah, of course you want to do that. Like, why is there a paywall?
Why
None of these,
is there a fee for being knowledgeable?
Yes, exactly. There shouldn't be. We should not create borders or boundaries for people who are trying to seek out knowledge and are doing so in a way that's not hurting anyone, right? It's just, you're just trying to move forward and also help
of course,
humanity.
then I think the argument is, well, the person that created the knowledge should be compensated, which they apparently weren't doing.
Anyway.
Yeah,
they weren't. They were not being paid. None of the scientists and stuff saw this. Yeah, no, it's bullshit. So ultimately, he is downloading hundreds. One IP address gets pinged. They shut that down. MIT knows that there's somebody who's doing this. So who the fuck is it? We don't know who it is. How does Aaron do it? Aaron actually has a laptop in one of the closets that's connected to a networking switch. So in a controlled access wiring closet at MIT. So he puts a laptop in there. MIT and JSTOR put a camera in that closet to see who the fuck is downloading this. Instead of saying like, hey, stop doing that, they say, we're going to catch this person right in the act.
Oh my God.
So it's kind of like a sting operation that they're doing for Aaron. And Aaron's just like this dude who's just like, fuck it. I just want like, open source stuff, right? Like, so the door was unlocked from the beginning. It's not like he like grabbed a key and had like the door was always unlocked. It's not like he was trying to steal anything. He walked into something that was already unlocked. He did things like in a way that was just convenient.
Yeah.
And people were just a little stupid for handling it the way that they did. But he puts his laptop in, camera catches him, they ID that Aaron's the person who's downloading all these documents.
Wow.
So JSTOR actually settled privately with Aaron in June 2011, and he gave all the articles that he had downloaded back to JSTOR. So he's like, okay, fine, here you go. Like, you're going to try to like sue me. Here are all the articles back. Like, you can have them. Do you think that Aaron dodged the man? JSTOR is the database. They're like, we're cool. We wouldn't be talking about Aaron if that were the case.
Precisely.
Yeah. So on January 6, 2011, he was arrested by MIT police and a Secret Service agent at Harvard. He's a research fellow at Harvard, right? He never graduated college. He dropped out. He becomes a research fellow, and they kind of give him like honorary like access to Harvard shit, like because they're like, oh, this guy who's like a fucking genius is like, you know, part of us. So he's at Harvard. He's chased. He's on his bike. This dude doesn't drive, right? He's on his bike. He's being chased by a police officer and like
Sheldon doesn't drive either.
Right? Yes. Not too far off, yeah. Right? So he's a genius, and like he's like, what the fuck are people chasing after me? He doesn't know that he has anyone he thought the JSTOR stuff was behind him, and he's on his bike. People are chasing after him. He's like, what the fuck? So he starts like chasing, like running away from these folks, and all hell ultimately breaks loose. Secret Service, they indict him with multiple counts of issues. So he's charged multiple times by many courts who really state the charges of breaking and entering with the intent of committing a felony. Okay.
Who's like literally after him?
That's a great question. That's something we're going to kind of go over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because he thought, hey, everything's cool with me and JSTOR. Like the database that I downloaded all those documents, I give them all back. There's no problem.
That's all sorted.
Everything's sorted. It's not all sorted.
Clearly not.
Yeah, clearly not. So he's charged with breaking and entering into, with the intent to commit a felony. Charges of wire fraud, computer fraud, unlawfully obtaining information from a protected computer, and recklessly damaging a protected computer. He was also indicted with state charges of breaking and entering with intent, grand larceny, and unauthorized access to a computer network. On December 16th, 2011, state prosecutors filed a notice that they were dropping two original charges, and then the charges listed in November 17th of 2011, the indictment were dropped on. Ultimately, he is being charged by with a shitload felonies and things like that for this JSTOR download, these ultimate downloads. After
he had already supposedly settled
cleared it out
the
with
matter.
JSTOR. Yes. With JSTOR, yeah.
Wow.
So September 12th, 2012, federal prosecutors actually filed an indictment adding nine more felony counts, increasing his maximum criminal exposure to 50 years of imprisonment. 50 years of imprisonment, including $1 million in fines. And during plea negotiations with the attorneys, the prosecutors actually offered to recommend a sentence of 6 months in a low security prison if he pled guilty for 13 federal crimes. His lead attorney's like, dude, we didn't fucking do anything bad. Like, we're cool with JSTOR. So ultimately, they continue to pursue him. Now, when Aaron was captured by the Secret Service agents and stuff, they put him into a solitary confinement for an extended period of time. So he was in solitary confinement. He didn't really even know why they were, chasing after him. He thought everything was fine with JSTOR. So this is before all of the indictments and the felony charges and stuff. They chase after him while he's at Harvard, end up capturing him. He ends up going into, and this is like a dude who's super, this is not a career criminal who's like used to being in solitary confinement. And he's in solitary confinement for an extended period of time. It's not like
he's doing anything.
He has
like
no
illicit.
idea. No, he has no idea. And he's in solitary confinement. He's incredibly what the fuck is going on? Like, I have attorneys who are supposed to be taking care of this. They took care of it. They still didn't release Aaron for like 5 hours after. Like, his attorneys were like, you have no grounds for keeping him. So like, things were being done shoddily. And truly, the question is, was he being made an example of? Right?
By the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you will not take our shit.
You're trying to take, because ultimately who is searching for this? JSTOR is done.
Well, that's just it. Yeah, he's like, okay, we're done, because they're like, well, we figured it out.
We figured it out. We've talked about it.
So who's left?
MIT. MIT would be the ones who are working with the government potentially to indict Aaron, because there's no one else that could be. And MIT is all about like, oh, scientific minds. We want them. We want all these like computer like geniuses and stuff.
But are they working with the government?
That's a huge question. That's a huge question, because there would be no reason. JSTOR publicly said, we were not pursuing anything with Aaron. We are fine. We already came to a conclusion. It's okay. We are not seeking anything legally against Aaron. Aaron, like,
of all the people you would think not working with the government would be MIT.
Right.
That's effed.
Who set up the camera? Was it JSTOR? JSTOR had to have been working with MIT in order to have it happen. Why was there a Secret Service fucking member who like goes and runs this dude down while he's on a bike at Harvard? Like, why is the Secret Service involved?
Yeah.
There's too many questions. And it seems like, I don't know. I'm not skeptical in this. I honestly believe that he was trying to be made an example of, because he was so public and so principled.
Yes.
It's like, hey.
Yeah. Hey, smarties.
Yeah.
Don't.
Guess what? You think you're a hacktivist? Well, fuck you and your hacktivism.
Yeah.
And what do? They're going to try to make him an example, because he's a very public profile. He's a very public person.
But I feel, is MIT like helping?
I think that's a great question.
I mean, doesn't it seem like they are? It
seems to me, because if JSTOR is publicly saying, we already settled, we're okay, we are not pursuing anything against Aaron, you know, he gave all the articles back, we're cool. If JSTOR is cool with it, who's pursuing charges? Who else has the right to pursue charges?
And it feels like you would need the cooperation of MIT at this point for some of those things.
Because he was downloading directly from their, like, you know, that closet that had all of the, I don't know, bullshit.
Right.
Whatever that is. But yeah, I would say.
That's disappointing.
It's super disappointing. Yeah, it's super disappointing. So, you know, the thing about it is, like, as Aaron's going through all of these things, like, it's very, very expensive. It's expensive to fight the federal government.
Yes, hell yeah.
And where did he get his money? His family didn't come from money, right? Which is why he was so principled. Like, they didn't come from like they're not like Elon Musk, who had, like, you know, billions of dollars as a child, or Donald Trump. Like, you know, they're not, you know, born into riches. He created his own riches. And so the money that he had was because of acquisitions of companies that he were co-founders of, like Reddit and stuff like that. His money's drying up because he's fighting all of these federal charges. And he's really incredibly principled. You know, they talked to his girlfriend, and she was like, you know, Aaron really wanted to become a part of the government. Like, he wanted to work at the White House. And, you know, one of the conversations that they were walking in Washington, D.C. during all this time while he's being, like, charged and going through all this, like, court bullshit. He said, yeah, you know what? Can't have a felon working in the White House.
Can't have a what?
A felon working in the White House. So he's like, fuck, that's like, he's so principled. That's what he wants. He wants to be able to create real change in the United States around open source and allowing, like, information to be had by all the people. So, you know, that's a huge problem for him. And he's facing all of these, like, these charges. I mean, we're talking like, 10 plus fucking felony charges.
They were after his fucking ass.
They're after his ass for sure. They're after him. Yeah. They were after him. And he, when you're up against, it's like David and Goliath, right? Like he's David, he's fighting against this, like, this huge monster who has all of this power, all of this money. He doesn't necessarily have the ability to protect himself. And, they're adding 9 more felony counts in September 12th, 2012. And then the maximum criminal exposure to 50 years imprisonment and then $1 million in fines. So,
by the way, there are murderers that get off for less than that.
Exactly. And then you have this guy who's like, is it really that big of a deal?
Right.
That's a huge problem. So like during plea negotiations with the attorneys of Swartz, like the prosecutors actually offered to recommend a sentence of 6 months in a low security prison if he pled guilty to 13 federal crimes.
Jesus.
So it's like he was up against the wall. Him and the attorney rejected the deal. And once again, like once they reject the deal, then the prosecutors are like up against him. So ultimately, he ends up not seeing a way out. And he dies by suicide on January 11th, 2013.
Oh my God.
Of course, after his death, the prosecutors dropped the charges. And
they drop. Why? Wait.
Yeah.
A minute. If they were that convinced that he did it, why would they drop the charges after he killed himself?
Yeah. Why would you not try to say like?
Why
hey,
wouldn't
look.
you just say, yeah? Why? I mean, what's the point of that?
Or like even like showing like he was clearly guilty. Like here are all the reasons why. Like we didn't. I think that they knew that they were making Aaron a scapegoat. They were making an example of him.
That is awful.
So there's a huge movement of hacktivism and an open source like sharing where people can seek out knowledge and find things like whether it's whatever it is that you're passionate about. Like if you want to figure those things out or like have like scholarly journals, like these things should be free to you. And
I get the whole copyright. Like I write a program, like I write a thing. That's my proprietary source code. But that is very different than creating something that you want to share to the world.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
It's, God,
he was like bullied into submission, to ultimate submission. And he ends up killing himself. And it's like this guy who is like incredibly principled, like, ends up feeling like he's not, what can you do against the fucking United States government?
You can't.
Like, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are.
No, you're effed.
When they decide that they're going to, them and fucking MIT.
Well, that's the other thing too. When I kept saying like, if they're involved and you said, if you got MIT and the government together against you, you are effed.
You're fucked. You're totally fucked. And we know that the organization that he was stealing all the articles, or not stealing, but really just cleverly taking from the database JSTOR, was not pursuing any charges.
Well, and to play devil's advocate, I don't want to. If he was downloading something that. It's kind of the same thing as, and I don't want to derail here, but if you were downloading music and sharing it or downloading, that's not legal.
Right.
So I don't want to give him kudos for doing something illegal, but if he was sharing things that the creators and the originators said, I'm trying to help the world, or I'm trying to better the world, or, do things, that's very different. And unfortunately, when you go through that place what's the JSTOR?
JSTOR.
That's charging you for everything, you're kind of like you're kind of fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess from my perspective, I do think that like knowledge and the pursuit of, knowledge should be free. So as punk rock as that kind of well, that's not fucking punk rock. I would say that's just human.
Yeah. But if you created something, I'm playing
Yes,
devil's advocate. If you
do.
created something, that is your thing that you've created out of nothing.
Yes.
And if your intent was to stop world hunger, that's one thing. But having a third party now sell your thing and say that now it is illegal if you share that with the world, that is something very different. So yeah. I guess it's finding intent, and I think that's where it gets all blurry.
I think you're right. I mean, bottom line here, I think we can say in Aaron's situation is he and JSTOR reached an agreement, right? So JSTOR is like, fine.
That was done.
Cool. Yeah.
That's the thing. The
U.S. government?
That was done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What does the U.S. government
and
have
MIT.
to do with anything at this point?
And MIT.
MIT.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, and like I'll quote like his parents. So his parents said he did kill himself, right? Robert Swartz, which is his father, said Aaron was killed by the government and MIT betrayed all of its basic principles. I don't think that's too far off,
right,
potentially, of what happened.
Doesn't sound like it.
That being said, fuck MIT. Like
that's just if things are as we interpret them to be, that's just very, very disappointing is the wrong word, but that's disappointing.
It's incredibly disappointing. And you can watch, there's a documentary, really good documentary called The Internet's Own Boy, the story of Aaron Swartz. And I would say, please, check it out, watch it, learn a little bit more about Aaron. And they still have like hackathons in Aaron's name in November. So mid-November every year they have multiple day hackathons that you can be a part of. There's still quite a few things that we use every day that Aaron had a huge part in, like RSS, feeds.
Yes.
That Aaron had a huge hand in, and I hate talking about sad things, but I do think that the story of Aaron Swartz is one that all of us could. It's really a modern day David and Goliath, where we have Aaron, who's really trying to move forward humanity and to allow knowledge to maybe. Are you breaking a couple of rules? Like maybe, but maybe we kind of need to like break a couple of rules in order to get better. And at least from my perspective, I don't think he did anything with malintent. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I agree. And, I'm such a, oh God, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's difficult. I'm a type of person where, the rules are rules.
Right.
We all know the rules. We need to follow the rules. We all agreed to the rules.
Do you think that you need to follow the rules?
Well, but that's where I get to the gray line, because sometimes the rules
are stupid,
are nonsensical.
Yeah.
And for the betterment of whatever, you need to break the rule.
You have to break the rules. Yeah.
But then someone else breaks the rule and they say, well, I'm breaking the rule because of blah. And you're like, you are an idiot. Why did you break that rule?
Yeah. They're being assholes.
Do you know what I
think
mean?
It has everything to do with intent. Like we've talked about it before. Like for me personally, I am all for breaking rules if the intent is pure and if it's without malice. I think I am the type to think that rules are meant to be broken or interpreted in whatever way you want to. Things are not black and white. Things are more of shades of gray.
Things aren't black and white. That is an absolute truth. And I will go as far as saying when our founding fathers wrote the Constitution, things were a certain way.
Yes.
And while they were effing geniuses, and the things that they wrote were they had such foresight.
Yes, there's a lot of forethought in it. Yep.
Things are different.
Yes. Yeah. Times change. Mm-hmm.
So breaking a rule that was written 17 million years ago might make sense.
Yeah. That's like a huge part of technology, and like the United States government, like the government cannot move as quickly as technology does. Like we have to constantly kind of be on our toes, and I think that's a good thing. Like I think, of course, like a lot of awful things can happen, and
that's just it. Like, how are you to say you're right, you're wrong? You can break the rule, you can't break the rule. That rule break is good, that rule break is bad.
Yeah, what's right and what's wrong. I think Aaron was a true hero, personally.
To what you said before, there was zero malice involved. Yes. He wanted people to know things that would otherwise be inaccessible. Mm-hmm. So his intent was pure.
Yeah. And he didn't really break any rules. He just kind of bended them slightly because they couldn't really find any like real issues that he had. They were using outdated laws in order to create those felonies. Like the laws that they were pulling from were like from 1994 from crazy acts that like made no sense anymore. Like they're super outdated. That's technology and government, right? Like that's
and the
always
company that he was having the problem with said fine.
That's cool. Yeah.
Done.
So that's the thing that's so fucked up. And like, I would invite anyone who is curious about learning about Aaron, like, you know, you can like, if you're into hacking and into computer programming, you know, check out, you know, the hackathons that they have mid-November. But there are many ways, I think, to kind of honor Aaron and people who are really trying to push folks and to push knowledge being accessible to everyone. And I think any way you can do that is great. But also check out The Internet's Own Boy, which is the documentary on Aaron. I'm going to watch it. Yeah, you should. It's great. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for the episode. That was so fun. I mean, I know you're not a nerd.
I'm not a nerd like that. I'm not a computer nerd. I'm nerd.
You're a nerd in like sci-fi way.
Yeah. Yes, in sci-fi, and I'm also like an appreciator of all nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you for the episode.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay.
This was really nice.
Well, good. We'll see everyone on our next episode.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.